Okay, all right. Good night, good night, good night. Welcome to the Fatherhood Think Tank. It is the 60 to 90 minutes of intellectual conversation by fathers, for fathers, about fathers. I am the curator, Dr. Ron, and we are exhilarated to be back. We missed last week. Listen, weather is troublesome. You know, it's not like when I used to live in sunny Florida and every day was a sunshine unless they had a hurricane. But now we're back into some high level uh, weather situations, and so it makes everything a little bit more complicated. But I want to welcome everybody here tonight, and we have a really good topic tonight that you may think is one thing, but if you know anything about the Fatherhood Think Tank, it's going to turn into another thing. Tonight's topic is you are the father. You are the father. And that's, taking a little clank from the More Perfect show where people come on and say, hey, am I the father? You are the father. And they have paternity tests right there live on the show. But we're gonna make it a little bit different twist, saying you are the father. Not in that sense, but you'll see when we get into it. Because I know this panel we got tonight. We got look who's back in his house. Let me go ahead and let us go ahead and get the fathers who will join us tonight to go ahead and introduce themselves, and then we can get into this top conversation.
Well, since I'm back, let me introduce myself first. Brother Johnny Gaspard, just great to be back. Great to see the faces. Brother Teddy, I've been wanting to come on here and tell you I see your son on my favorite show, Abbott Elementary. I'm like, wow. I know that. Well, I don't know him, but I know his daddy. Great to see you, Lionel. Great to see, of course, the man, the figure, the one that made me decide that this was part of what I want to do, Dr. Ron, and of course, my big brother, Von Howard. Good to see you as well. Thank y'all very much for this opportunity to be here, and it's great to be back in the mix with y'all. Great to see your faces. Yeah. And I'm here, but I'm done.
I don't know. I got some of this love music playing in the background, so I don't know if this is supposed to be the way the show's supposed to kick off. But Von Howard, father of two, married, going on. We had to calculate this last night. This will be year 9th going in March. You can keep that weather up north because I see it trickling down here. But at the end of the day, happy to be here, happy to see the fellas, have a conversation.
Good evening, gentlemen. This is Ed Tenney, transitioning to a single dad, father of 3 adult children, 2 grandbabies, and 1 on the way. Looking forward to introducing myself to that future young one coming in.
Hey, good afternoon, gentlemen. My name is Lionel Lightborn. I'm a father to a tribe of 7 young adults, 3 young women, 4 young men, 1 granddaughter, 1 grandson who's getting ready to be 2 years old this Sunday, I think. Ooh, don't let me mess it up. But nevertheless, I'm just blessed to just be here and always be a part and take part in this conversation.
Right on time, like Rohan.
Oh yeah, thanks for having me here.
It's on you, brother. Introduction.
All right. Good night, gentlemen. I'm a dad of 2 young ladies. I'm here to share the journey of raising children and to empower all fathers who are also on the journey.
Okay, great. So tonight, I we had a topic like 2 years ago, and it was more geared, this same topic. It was kind of geared to the idea of you are the father and what happens when people find out they're the father and they might not, or you are not the father, you find out. And I think one of the things the reason why, we kind of came and looked for this topic is I've had a lot of situation and incidents recently where people are finding out they are not the child's father biologically, genetically. They've been being a father. They are being rough shy of being a father, and the conversation has kind of come to a point that's saying, "Hey, what is the right, the wrong, the ugly, the good, the bad thing to do when that type of situation you are faced?" And it leads us to the panel and the fathers to really give some real insight for people who might even be thinking, because I mean, it wasn't too long ago I got a call from a guy, and he was on the edge, and he was saying that he had been through all of this hassle and harassment with the child's mother, and their relationship was good up and down, and then it's 12 years later, and you find out this being that has been his whole life is not his life, right? It's not even, and and he didn't know what to do, and he had been through the child support beat down, he said, and it wasn't about money, it's just about the hassle of how everything operated. It wasn't about not wanting to provide. It's like, he wanted to provide, but you won't give me time to see the kid. All of these things he began to share with me, and I could only begin to think about what we have talked about so many times, Rohan, is where was he at? Could he have been at his wit's end with this situation? And we think about the fatalities that Rohan sent me all the time, fatalities in relation to bad relationships involving children. And so I just kind of, in the time of talking to him, I kind of like just gave him the idea is that, hey, listen, you can't let something like this ruin your life and, ruin who you are. There's a way to operate around all this. It's interesting because he was saying that he still was wanting to be in the girl's life, but even at this point, the mom wasn't even letting him be in her life when he thought the baby was his. So how was that going to even operate, even to this extent? So I throw it out to you guys, thoughts and ideas of, what do you think about, and where are we going, and how are we able to maybe maneuver this in another way, and look at this and be able to help not just the fathers, but mothers and the children in these type of situations.
Well, Ron, I got a few questions because I need clarity. Okay, because you gotta give us a scenario. But was he married to the woman?
No, he wasn't. Just his girlfriend.
Okay,
it was a girlfriend that he clearly they were in a relationship. I think they didn't get to the marriage part yet, and they was getting to it, but then the relationship broke down.
Okay. That changed a lot, because if he was married to her, even after he found out that the child wasn't his, under the law, he'd be legally responsible because he was married to her. So the law says that's his child. That's wild, but it's the truth. Now, since he was not married to her, and I'm assuming he had not done any paperwork or gone to court to be determined to be by a court to be ruled as the father of the child. That's why he was going through all the drama of her keeping the child away and so on and so forth. The only thing he could have done was, as I advise a lot of young men here in South Florida to do, is if you're going through this process, and right now I'm helping one of my younger cousins with the same situation. You just got to file and open the case yourself, put yourself on child support, unfortunately. But with that, you have to file your petition to establish paternity. Now, under the law, you may believe that that's your child, that that's the only person you were with her during the time of this, but it's always best to go and get tested to ensure the child is yours if you have any doubts. And sometimes I even advise, even if you don't have a doubt, you should still go and get tested. That way you eliminate any issues. And despite her maybe feeling some kind of way because you test to make sure the child is yours, unfortunately, we live in a time today, gentlemen, that even the woman that you believe is the nicest, won't ever do you any dirt, seemingly the most loyal woman that there is, doesn't go out, isn't into any of the street stuff, they shady as hell and doing a lot of dirt under there. So it's always best to go ahead and do the test to eliminate any potential issue. Now, once you've done that, you just got to go through the process of trying to have the court establish you as the father, and then you can establish your time sharing and then deal with the child support from there. If at this point, Ron, he's determined that he's not the child, but he's still dealing with the legal court as far as child support is concerned, this is when he can ask to have the DNA testing done. And even if it's 12 years later, if it's determined it's not his child, he can have that child support case dropped from him. That is a possibility. But you have to go through this process of the legal system of being tested, which you see he's already done, and he's determined so he could file a petition to have the child support case against him closed out, because legally he's not the father of the child. That is a process he can take. So just to let you know.
Yeah. You know, I want you to, you know, I know you gave that answer, but I wanted you also, I know, to give the opposite answer that you asked about the person being married and what happens to them when they are married. Because a lot of times we are dealing a lot of times with guys who are not married, who they're in the baby mama, baby daddy, co-parenting lifestyle. But when this is occurring and happening, and usually this is this is obviously when we see more of a fatality type mentality in this, when the people are married. And you know, I mean, if you watch social media, you see multiple times a person has, you know, they found out none of the kids is theirs, right? You know, they have four kids, none of the kids theirs, and that's a very strange dynamic in that case. And what does that person do? What happens to them?
It's if they're married, obviously you'd go. The assumption is the next step is because you found out that this child is not yours, which implies that your wife has been unfaithful to you. Your assumption is the next step is that they'll file for divorce. Now, in the divorce proceeding, you can file a motion to have the child determined not to be yours. And a court would have to then determine that and make that ruling that this child is not yours due to the fact that the wife was unfaithful and had this child outside of the marriage. So in that scenario, you may not be responsible for the child support, but that would only be after you've gone through the process of filing for divorce, and through that process, trying to have that vacated. But it is an emotion for most men that may have been married, has raised this child for, I think you said around 12 years. What scenario? You could only imagine his emotional tie to this child. So it makes it almost impossible for you to want to walk away. But I've learned sometimes you have to walk away and then do your investment separately from the mom. If that makes sense to me, to you gentlemen. The issue that you're then having, however, is because the child is a minor, if you do decide to do the divorce and have a court rule that you are not the child's father, in that scenario, you don't have any rights to establish any type of visitation. And if mom was already being that person, she now legally you don't have any right to even ask for it. So it may be one of those situations where you can step away and then just, as you often say, we often say here, As the child gets older, they'll learn the truth, and may establish their own relationship with you at some point. But it definitely is going to leave the child with a lot of emotional scars, because here was this man who at one point was there every day, the man she calls daddy, and then he disappears from her life. He doesn't talk to her. She has no idea who he is and where he is. And she's probably asking her mom, and if the mom was already shady in the behavior here, I wouldn't be surprised if she's telling the child, "Oh, your daddy say he not your daddy no more," things like that. Which she's not being truthful, because this is a 12-year-old child who doesn't truly understand the ramifications of the parents' behavior. So I think all of that plays its role in his ultimate choice. But that's ultimately what it boils down to, him making that decision to have a court make that ruling as he's going through the divorce process. I hope that
Throw somebody real quick.
Brother Howard, we're here. You're going in and out real bad, so I don't know what's.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right. From a legal perspective, could the court deem that the mom pays restitution for the years lost, so to speak?
You mean the 12 years of fraud?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there is no case law that has been established allowing that at this time that I'm aware of. That Ron just asked the same question in text where Ron just asked. Again, at this, as I'm aware, there's no case law allowing for that to happen. The father may have to sue the mom outside of family court in a civil situation, arguing fraud, deception, theft. Those are, what he could possibly raise. But that would have to be, as far as, again, case law wise, that would be outside of the family law dynamic, as there isn't any that I'm aware of at this moment to allow him to do so.
Quick question. Good evening, guys. I wanted to ask a quick question. This is Vincent, by the way. I was wondering, is it possible we can have like a petition, or we can have a bill like United States wide, where we can actually have a bill like that for us guys, because this is going on repeatedly. Just like recently, they had a girl where she didn't even have a baby per se, and she actually got arrested by basically claiming that her ex boyfriend was pregnant by her, and that was like actually her niece or something like that. So we really got to be on top of that, guys, because they really scamming us right now.
Oh, wow. That you went all over the place with that, Vincent. But
listen. Let me answer a little bit about that legislation part, Vince, and welcome back, brother. One of the issues is that you can see across the country, in different places. Remember that a larger majority of these laws that occur are localized. So you would start at local levels, cities, states. Will go to the legislators and start these laws. One of the problems you have is that there is this idea that, and hopefully Lloyd Bowman will talk a little about this. There is this bias that will not probably make that happen, because there are men who believe that women and children need to be taken care of, regardless of circumstances, right? So they're going to look at it. Are you going to then now put in jeopardy that these children and women will not be taken care of? There is this idea that, hey, if you have some involvement, you might be responsible for what's happening, because we don't know. It's very hard to say what happened and not happened. And the way we live in today, things can be diabolical. I seen a thing the other night where the man went to go prove that he had a rape kit. He got the person had raped somebody, and the person was able to get in contact with the nurse and get the nurse to change the rape kit so that didn't happen. And again, just these kind of things, somebody calling the wrong office and sharing confidential information, like, somebody and somebody in hospice and they're reading their file and saying, oh, I know their son or their daughter, and calling the daughter and the son. I know Johnny ears are perking up because there's some major lawsuits, right?
Major
lawsuits. But that it will be, I think, a difficult thing to bring about. But I don't think that is impossible, because the way things are going presently in the country, if you get enough people to back something and they start pushing for it, because they have quite a few things going on right now, in that realm. I don't know if this thing is
Letter's
true
not
or
working.
not
I'm on a call.
about the income tax is coming up, and they saying now if you're a father, you pay child support, you can you can qualify to apply for your part of your tax. And I think that's something that just should have been, when you look at the numbers of it, fathers anybody who's paying child support, and the other parent is getting the benefit of that finance in some sense, because if they was in a household as a family together, that benefit will come to the family. And because it's separate, that means it only goes to one person, even though both people are providing the money. That's a little uneven, and I'll leave it out to people to comment and what they think about that.
So Ron, me. I got to play Diva's advocate. Not
which advocate?
I got to come from a woman's perspective. I got to play Diva's advocate.
Okay.
I had to use that because it was just sitting right there. But from a Diva's advocate, when you're talking about, I'm trying to go, okay, let's go back to the original point. You're talking about governing some type of immorality. And if I ask you who create more, or who commit rather, more deceptive practices in relationship, men or women, you understand? Then I guess the pendulum is gonna swing more towards men. And so if that is so, governing morality in any, or integrity in any shape or form, is not going to work out for our favor, because just because a woman may have deceived you in a pregnancy, it's going to fail in comparisons and the amount of deception that we do when it comes to relationships of heterosexual relationships, or any type of relationship for that matter, only because of the historical sexism that goes along with it. And so I think most laws come about to stop or to prevent injustices from becoming an epidemic or a pandemic, for that particular matter. And so that's why it exists. Now we'd have to prove that that the deception it rises to that particular level, or a few men have been deceived when it comes to women putting children on them versus the amount of men that don't take care of their children or claim their children at all. And so when you put those two on the scale of justice, then does it weigh in our favor, or does it still weigh in the women's favor? And so when it comes to that, I'm like, listen, we can say what we want to say, but if we don't really face or start to be more empathetic towards the injustices of women and sexism and the history thereof, I mean, we're comparing something that's minute. Money is very minute. The fact that they actually have a system, a rating system or a percentage system when it comes to child support, I think we blow it up. We make it a lot bigger than what it is. I think that women, if the course was to say, okay, let's look at the behavior of women versus the behavior of men, and if the roles was if the roles was reversed, how many women will actually stay with a man after he had another child on them, versus how many, you understand? How many men would stay with a woman after she had a child? You understand? So you have to bring all these factors in. And I'm going to be honest with you. I mean, again, we still lose because you got more women, and women are more likely to stay with men when they have a child outside of the relationship versus men staying with women. And so I think when it comes to that, again, that it's still going to swing in the woman's favor, because it says, okay, so women are more forgiving than men. You understand? And then still, how do you measure or balance that type of equity? You understand? And that equity of integrity. And so it would be almost if you look at the history of that type of equity or that type of integrity, then you have to say, okay, then men will actually owe women when it comes to taking care of children out of whoever. I'm just being real with you. We would actually owe women because women would still be in the deficit when it comes to women having children outside of relationship on men versus men having children outside of relationship on women. And so again, that's where the empathy come in at. How do we weigh that? You understand? And how do you govern morality? We're going to still lose only because sexism is going to always favor the women and not the man. And rightfully so. We do get away with a lot of crap. And so I'm going to just leave that right there and give somebody else a chance.
Johnny, I'm going to let you go because I think you might be going to say the same thing, but go ahead. Go ahead, Johnny.
And I get where my illustrious brother Lightborn is saying, right? However, from a perspective legal, and I do believe that some of this legislation is feasible to pass if you have the right people in power that are impacted by it. Ultimately, it's about who is impacted by the act that makes it have a chance of becoming a law. If you end up, as we are seeing now, the behavior of the people when it comes to ICE's actions and the police department's action when it comes to people that don't necessarily look like us, and how they're now reacting towards that as far as the entire community, versus when it's stuff that happens to people that do look like us, there's less arguments, less legislative involvement, less action by those people in power. So I think because the right man, if he becomes a victim, quote unquote, that may then turn into some true legislative behavior. But until that does happen, I do believe what Brother Lightborn says will prevent it from getting any type of grasp from a legislative perspective, whether it be on a state level or on a federal level, as far as legislation to possibly, quote unquote, hold women accountable from a financial perspective when they have been deceptive in whether or not the man is a father of the child.
Hey, but I'm going to say two things. Then I'm going to get. I know we got three fathers that came on who didn't introduce themselves, and I'm gonna do it because I know one of the fathers on a call with me last night, right? Where there were people who were working to advocate for their children losing their children, getting their children taken away from CPT, Child Protective Service, all of that. And they are working adamantly, getting in contact with politicians, Congress members to work that in a way. But they, like I think what you said, it was who that group of people was, and who do they look like, and how are they being affected? That they're getting in those rooms to be able to make those kind of connections. I'll say this. I hear you, Lightborn, that a man can go and have another child, and with a wife stay with him after you have another child. The problem is what we said earlier. A woman can have as many children as she wants, and just tell a man that those are his children. He will never know if it's another man's child unless they're tested. I mean, more than I think about this scenario. Someone telling me the story about that their dad was in the military when their brother was born, right? When their brother was conceived and born, and they never knew. There was nothing ever said or done about it at all, and there was never a conflict or whatever. But when he became an adult, he said to himself, "Yo, how if my dad was here during these 3 years? How did my brother was born during this time? My dad never came back from overseas, but the brother was there, born, alive, and lived in the house happily ever after." So there is sometimes the opportunity. I think men have a lot of men have a lot more grace when it comes to that, because they don't know, right? Women know immediately because here come another woman with the kid saying, "Hey, this is his kid." No other man is coming to say, hey, that baby inside her mind, buddy. And how do you prove it? Because I slept with her, and I sleep with her every night, and you might, what happened. So I just want to throw that out there and get the dad who didn't introduce themselves. Introduce yourself, say the number of children and who you are, and welcome to the Fatherhood Think Tank.
Hey, you guys see me?
Yeah.
I see you guys.
Yeah.
Hey, I want to say Happy New Year's. I want to say hello to the Lightborn, and I've spent a wonderful time with his family. And I want to just say I'm really impressed that you guys continue to fight and advocate for fathers. I think I've been listening a little bit on Facebook, so forgive me if I may have some things out of context. By the way, I am a father of 7. In fact, my youngest, who is going to be 4 years old, Ty El Ray will be 4 years old on Thursday, and we're gonna have a nice big party for him on Saturday. But well, I think one of the things that sometimes it's weird to me when I hear conversations is like how we dance around the reality of how race has shaped power, punishment, and has normalized, for a great part of family behavior that has been, I think, defined and enforced through the various court systems. And we got to understand that they are power systems. There's not a neutral space. And I think ignoring race is extremely problematic because it doesn't make the system fair, and it hides how corruption and harm actually operates in the Black community. So many instances where we may be talking about the micro with respect to how some of these behaviors that women display may impact us. We have to understand that there's on a macro a design to deliberately discount, disrespect, marginalize and the Black man, because the Black man has a very unique position. In fact, not just in the community, in fact, in the world, the Black man is the man who protects not just his family, but he protects the elders in the community. He protects the women in the community. So as long as they can utilize the court and is incentivized by, matching funds, in many instances, like if you get a kid, a father on child support so that he becomes economically irrelevant. When we do talk and we say men, I think we have to condition ourselves, because it's very to say Black men, because our experiences is on one spectrum versus white men who have made the system the way that it is. And when we kind of get lumped in with the really psychotic behavior of white men, I kind of feel like we end up in some really, really difficult places and spaces, and difficult to kind of look at slave codes, Reconstruction era. We're talking about gentrification. We're talking about Jim Crow, laws that actually impacts the current system that we have to kind of dibble and dab in, and we try to explain it away and make certain justifications that we know, I think, in our heart of hearts, don't quite add up, because we continue to ignore. I'm saying we do, because we normally, as Black men, ignore that this is all rooted in race. Ron was right. Yesterday we had someone on a program, and there was a white woman who got on and said, "What's happening to them is so terrible, and it's the worst thing that has ever happened in the history." And I was like, "Wait a minute. Does she not know about Jim Crow? Does she not know about the transatlantic slave trade?" And because they're talking about how their kids were removed, and it's like another world. And I think that we've gotten to this place because, raising our voice, being analytical and critical used to cost us our lives. So these systems treat Black, Indigenous, and poor families as inherently suspect, and in need of constant supervision. This legacy does not really disappear if we ignore it. We have to really advocate. We have to put forward the issue of race and be very clear when we're articulating the type of treatment that Black men get versus white men.
Brother Washington, I got everything you just said.
Mm-hmm.
How then, based upon what you shared, I like to put context to what you said to the topic of what we're discussing in reference to when you are the father of the child,
Mhm.
but you're not the father of the child. So here, so I'm asking you for clarity on
Okay.
based on what you just shared.
Mhm.
How do we connect that with she lied to me,
Mhm.
had me raise this child for 12 years,
Mhm.
only for when we are checking the child because the child has some health issue. So they're testing all of us to see if we are compatible to do what we need to do to help this child that I believe has been mine,
Mhm.
only to find out ain't no way I could be the child's daddy.
Mhm.
How do you
Mhm.
correlate what you just shared with that scenario?
Yes, yeah. I think one of the one of the reasons why that is a paramount problem with us, because when we look at the fact that we've had all these expenditures, that we've spent the time, we spent the money, and we live in a capitalist system that's constantly attacking our economic base. That's the only reason why I think black men, we don't really care. We never, you know, we have a history in this country where we didn't even have DNA tests. Like, that's something relatively new. If we were emotionally connected to a child, we just looked at it as our child. I remember growing up, even in my own home, there was no shade, there was no shame, there was no guilt, there was it was no problem. We lived like a village, right? Fast forward to today, right? And to answer your question, you know, I think more succinctly, is that much of what we are talking about is beyond the betrayal, beyond the promise, beyond the fact that somebody had said something to us, but how it impacts us more so economically than you know, how we feel, because we're not, you know, we're human beings. We don't just turn off that switch. Let's say, you know, you raised a kid, you know, 10, 15 years. And actually, you know, I can give personal experiences, a lived experience where, you know, I've still get contacted by kids who I was involved because I was involved with their mothers. And I remember Sienna, I hope she's listening, I'm gonna tell her to take this out. I remember just like a tear roll. She asked me to go to take her to the, you know, daddy daughter dance, but I wasn't a biological. But these things didn't really matter because there wasn't this punishment, there wasn't this coercion, there wasn't this force. This is happening from the inertia of the system, and that's why I'm saying when we have conversations like this, and to contextualize in terms of, let's focus on the system and the laws and these kind of things that are designed to you know, shape the dynamics that happen in our community. I think that will be a more worthwhile effort with regard to how do we really like come up with solutions that are long term and long standing, as opposed to deal with the micro of some, you know, one person. Let's say like all of us have different situations, and then, you know, we can have Ron advocate, we can have an attorney advocate for us, but it doesn't really change the system. You know, I think these are okay.
Brother Tylon,
Yes.
I really appreciate your perspective. However, if I may offer a contrast, given Brother Johnny's response as far as how you correlate a perpetration of fraud, I don't know. For me personally, it would set me on edge if I said, or if you said to me, "Hey, I did it. I perpetrated this fraud. The system made me do it." You know, virtually absolving themselves of any personal responsibility, any moral obligation. I feel you on how systems have kind of evolved, and at most times become to our disadvantage. But in a situation like this, if I'm involved with a woman and I'm, you know, the good guy,
Yes.
and I find out that a child that I've been taking care of for 12 years
Right.
is not biologically my son,
Right.
and she gives me an excuse, well, this system, you know, made me do it. I'm a object of this system.
You gonna choke her to
that would that would mess with my head.
Okay.
So,
Okay. I think that's fair, and I think
so
I think
that's
I'm
all. I'm
sorry.
just kind of saying that
Right.
we can't absolve ourselves from moral obligation and utilize a system that was created, even if it was to our disadvantage. There should not be an excuse for moral integrity or even spiritual integrity in those circumstances.
Well, first, let me be the first to apologize to anybody who interpreted what I'm saying is to excuse behaviors that have impact. When I think of things, I always think about the root, the cause, like what causes these behaviors, right? And is your fear, shame, guilt, and the inertia that what people say, and I grew up in a home, and I think a lot of us have. If you've been in this country, long enough, you have descendants in this country where you have all of these discoveries at funerals, right? Oh, someone shows up. Oh, your cousin. Like, wait, what? Or somebody, or at a funeral or at a cookout, where or family reunions. They've always been somewhat problematic because of our history in this country. And I think if we take out a section of why things happen and we look at the root causes of some of the behaviors, a lot of the behaviors are motivated by money. And this, once again, I am not excusing, betrayals, people lying, being deceitful, and it's sort of like, where we are. And I think when we talk about that, we have to look at contextually, right? We talk about context. We got to talk about corruption, right? So the woman is corrupt, right? Because to me, that's a form of corruption when she's lying and being deceitful and whatever. And I don't know if she would even admit to it. I know women, they go to their grave, with these secrets, and some people never know, right? But then we say to ourselves, does it really matter? Let's say psychologically, if someone was to say, let's say, like with my 7 kids, and I thought about this, and if I got there's 2 kids that haven't got DNA tests, and sometimes I scratch my head. I said, the way he be acting, I don't know, but he looks a lot like me. But and it was discovered that I wasn't. How much would that really change how I felt? Versus how much would I be thinking about? Look at all this money I done spent on this kid, and to find out that it's not mine. That's the economic aspect that, once again, because we live in a capitalist system that was founded on our oppression and still maintained on our oppression through the family courts, all the courts, the tennis court, any court that you can go to, that we go to, where we are not only prejudged, misjudged, and just, sort of like further castrated. And then when you said something that was interesting about accountability, right? I want to ask you, and maybe someone on the panel, when Black people aren't organized, how do we really hold it? We got to go to another man who is our oppressor to sit in front of him and say, can you hold her accountable? She lied to me, and she told me that these kids was mine, and they're laughing, not laughing, but they set up the system, and I'm sure that they understand. A lot of these people, they take a lot of classes, they understand the system, they understand the laws, and that, like, in this entire system, root and stem was never designed to empower Black men in particular. It's designed to do exactly what it is. So now we're going. I can see if we had an established committee, or there was an established, group of elders, right? And then, to me, accountability sounds like something real and tangible. But to me, it seems like it's going to be somehow bastardized or not really what it is if it's not organized or formed authentically by the group that is harmed or have been the target historically. See, so it's sort of like this watered down, like, I'm going to my oppressor. Think about this for a second. I'm going to my oppressor looking for justice, right? Because this woman has said something to me, and a lot of times I'm just out of, I'm out of the money, I'm out of the resource, I'm out of my wits, because I believe this to be true, and found out that it's not. I'm harmed, I'm hurt, and nobody cares. I remember watching these shows like, Maury, or one of those type of shows, and the woman is lying, and everybody's calling the woman. Nobody's even looking at the man, like you know, F how you feeling, you know, later for your pain. It's like we're a beast of burden. Our pain means absolutely nothing. So when we talk about accountability, this is a legitimate question that I'm asking. What does it look like to you? Does it look like going into court and the judge says, okay, I find that, yeah, we're going to, maybe we'll give you some justice, and what does it look like? I mean, it's a really legit question. If you're not in control, that's what I'm saying. Let's say we were a committee and we were in control, we can define it. It's kind of hard to define that and establish that when your oppressor is the one who is standing in judgment, standing on high, supposed to be with all this wisdom and knowledge, right? And making a decision, and they're the culprit. It's weird to me.
Well, I'll answer it.
Okay.
So for me,
okay,
I think Martin Luther King said it best. He said, an injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And so if that is so, I guess we have to just really look at the science of it, right? Mm-hmm. And so I believe in justice at its core, because you said we got to go to the root cause of it. So let's go to injustice at its core. And so injustices at its core, be it capitalistic or whatever the case may be, globally, injustices at its core is built on racism, sexism, and classism, right? And so, and the reason I put it there, because I couldn't really put racism at the top, because I know racism wouldn't be the greatest injustice in the world. And the reason I say that is because I know that factually there are more women in the world than there are black people in the world. But I also know factually there are more poor people in the world than there are women in the world. You see how that works? And so because I see that like that, and I know it is factual, I know that, yes, you do have racism, not denying that. You do have sexism, not denying that. You do have classism, not denying that. The problem is we're trying to fight battles as opposed to declaring war on the total injustice, as opposed to fighting injustices in silos. And so if we're going to just be fighting the justice of racism without actually having a strategy to combat the injustices of sexism and classism, then you're right. We're never going to go get anywhere, because we haven't really created the allies that's needed to actually get the type of justice and complete and total justice that we need globally. But if not anything, I think just to focus on one injustice, then that's a selfish justice within itself. I mean, that's just my thing. But I do give credence to everything you just said. But I have to look at it from a more, I guess, a more, not even scientific, but common sense perspective. And so I had to really evolve into what we're actually dealing with, because I have daughters, understand? And I come from a certain social economic background. And so I can't deny those injustices and act like just being black was the only injustice that I had. And despite the systemic things that came along with it, for me to be a victim, I understood the victimization of other people. You understand? And that's what got me to the core of saying, you know what? Now you're starting to evolve in dealing with injustice, you understand, from a total perspective as opposed to a silo perspective.
Okay. So the conundrum that I think that we're in, and just so that we're not saying, because I totally understand what you're saying, and I submit everything to logic and reason. You know, I don't, like I said, I don't believe in, you know, mystical things and mystical shooby dooby. That's not my bag. And I noticed that, you know, we're the only group that say, okay, let's look at, like, we're all men in here, right? And we're thinking about women, and we're thinking about class issues, and the majority of us are black, right? And we're generally, and this is just a general statement, this is not even specific to you, because I've been in a lot of settings, and I know that this keeps happening, and this is the reason why the red flags comes up. It's like, wait a minute, you know, any detective worth his salt, when he gets in a situation, he sees the same thing happening, and you see certain patterns, you say, okay, what's going on here? And I think that, you know, when we are affected as men, and we start to talk about women's issues, and we start to talk about class and, you know, other things, to me, it makes me curious, like, even why that happens. And and I'm not saying that as Black men, and if you look at our history, we have a way of just always being the most wisest in general. Racism is the language in which classism and sexism speaks. I think one of the reasons why Black men has been under the attack, because we are the men who historically, and we can look at kingdoms that's gone from Mansa Musa and and beyond, right? A Kush, how we've governed, and you look at some of the text, you start to understand that race is a lot more pronounced than they would want you to believe, right? So much so that fast forward, we are talking in a room right now with mostly Black men, right, about issues that impact Black men, and we are talking about women, and because I think that speaks to who we are, as in terms of our character, in terms of how we always. I think probably being some of the oldest entities, it's natural for us to understand and make connections and try to have empathy and sympathy for others. That is not true for the other group. And that's the problem when you don't contextualize what is happening to us and speak, when I say truth to power, with regard to specifically understanding that racism is the language in which classism, sexism, and all of that other isms speaks. All over the globe, even in Brazil, no matter where you go, and you look at all the groups, you have people in Africa bleaching their skin. You have people in subset like where it's hot and everybody, because this is how powerful this is, and this is as a result of us, I think, saying that let's include all these other things, and let's not really talk about race, because it makes my white friends or other people may feel uncomfortable, versus when we deal with that and we look at our history, that's the only thing that if you correct, everything else will fall into place, because we are not sitting at the mantle and with regard to coming up with our own councils, coming up with our own family court, coming up with our own system, with our own constitution, with our own codes of behavior, for example, right? That will then create that inertia in all of those other kinds of spaces that says and recognize that if men are empowered, and instead of disempowered, instead of disenfranchised, instead of disrespected and being discounted, the world would radically change. And this is the reason why we are strategically targeted. You have to think, okay, why are we always the focus, disproportionately in courts, disproportionately in the criminal justice system, disproportionately dying, being shot by cops, all this other kind of stuff, right? And it makes you think that, well, why is that happening? And you look at the numbers of the decline of the dominant so-called dominant culture, you start to understand that this is not happenstance. This is a deliberate attack that is utilizing race. And then when we have an opportunity to talk and empower and really look at these things, because at the end of the day, I'm sorry, I'm a little scattered here, but at the end of the day, how much power do you really have? And I want to go back to the question of how do you feel? What would justice look like to you if a woman said that these are your children and it's not? What do you want to happen to her? Do you want her to go to jail? Do you want her to be stoned? I'm serious. Like, what is justice to you? And I'm just saying, going to somebody else or going to the enemy, the sworn enemy of your people, and saying, I want you to resolve this, to me doesn't really resolve it, because it doesn't take away the pain. It doesn't take away it doesn't make you, it's not reparations. It doesn't repair at least the emotional part of it, even if you might, and this is an anomaly, and I know you all would agree that if a judge said, yeah, she did something wrong, let's make her pay. They don't want to, I've been in family because so many times, and it's just, whatever I get, I just get, because it's so lopsided and unfair that it's normal, right, for us to kind of, I'm going to get beat up, I'm going to go to court, and I'm going to have to take my lumps, as opposed to this feeling of, no, there's going to be a fair and impartial kind of thing. People on high are going to really be wise, and they're going to work this thing out. It's a corrupt system. It's incentivized by money, yes, but it's mostly incentivized by race and destroying the black family.
And Mr. Talon, I can't disagree with you on many of your points, but one of the things I've also learned in this world that we live in is if you stay focused in that box that you have created of race for everything, we are living in a country that unless you're able to emotionally and mentally take yourself outside of that box, you won't be able to accomplish anything, because as you just said, what she did, which was we find is wrong, will be irrelevant. If we took everything you just said and stayed in that box of grace for you, then it doesn't matter. We won't even bother to go there. You know why? Because the system ain't gonna fix it for us anyway. So why are we gonna go over there? That's a system created to oppress us. So we don't go over there. Why pick up the phone and call the police when they robbing my house and they raping my wife? Why? The system ain't created for it. They'll probably shoot me thinking I'm the one doing it. So it don't make any sense for me to call them. And I get what you're saying, but I think emotionally and mentally for us to survive in this world, you have to think outside of that box of race. Otherwise, you will constrain yourself, especially in the United States, and never be able to expand. It happens to a lot of us when we're looking for careers, when we're looking to succeed in whatever it is we're trying to do. If we keep ourselves locked in that box of race that you have so eloquently shared with us this evening, we won't be able to accomplish anything, and there will never be any true justice within our community, regardless of what we do, is pretty much what you're saying. No matter what happens in our community, to us, by us, we will never get the true justice, because the system that's created, whether it be family court, judicial court, whatever court it may be, was created to oppress us. Right. So we will never get any justice in there. So, hey, you know what? Why bother go? That's the impression that I'm getting with the box of race that you have shared here this evening. And I know that's not your intention, but somebody who doesn't think the way we do as men on this line may feel like there's nothing that I can do that. So I just put my hand up and call it a day. This lady took advantage of me.
Well, I want to answer. Well, I know. Okay, because I give other people speak, but I don't think it's a box. Your definition of saying that, looking at things the way that they are is actually freeing. It's actually eliminating. I think the box that we live in, that we feel like we have to be inclusive of other things to make the point about what race has done to, in fact, the entire planet. Because the injustice, like you said, Martin Luther King, the injustice that's done, anywhere is done everywhere. So to negate the justice that has been done to all the melanated people on the planet, that continues today, and to say, okay, in order for us to do that, define it as a box. Like I said, I would just respectfully disagree that it's a box. I think it's liberating. I think it's actually freeing, and it moves us closer to becoming more clear, because it becomes an issue of clarity with respect to what is actually going on here.
I want to answer that question. You raised the question about what can we do, or what would we do, or even what should we do. I'm gonna give you a real life scenario. This happened to me. I'm gonna testament of this.
Okay.
My son's mother, she had a husband that loved her to death. Love her like matter of fact, he showed me how to love my wife, and he loved my son's mother and married her way before I met my wife. We had a difference of opinion when it came to raising our children, whatever the case may be. He was more of a strict disciplinarian. I was more of a free spirited, whatever the case may be. And so what happened was this is speaking exactly to our point.
Okay.
His wife, which is my son's mother, she manipulated the situations for I ain't gonna say unknown reasons. I know the reasons why. I mean, because she told me why, but it was some manipulation. And again, on her part, because she actually apologized for it on both ends. That's not the real circumference of my story. The circumference of the story is he loved her, I love my child, and she we were still in conflict between me and her for our child. And long story short, we got into a physical altercation, a conflict, which resulted in a restraining order happening, and we having to go back to your point, Talon, to the courts to actually fix this out. Now, this is where this is where the cultural part comes in. And I don't be honest with you, because it could have been dangerous for me if God wasn't on my side. The cultural part for me coming in, because I think instinctively I may be a warrior. I'm not saying I'm not, I am, but instinctively I may be. And so to be a warrior, and particularly in our culture and our society, you got to understand I'm just not built to, like, for me, it's one size fit all when it comes to whatever combat, whatever battle. I am not going to beat the hell out of my brother. You understand? Then have manners for the sister at the same time.
Yes.
If I'm in combat with my brother and I beat the hell out of my brother, if the same thing is going to happen if I'm in combat with the system, I'm going to probably beat the hell out of that system. That was just my mentality back then. I didn't have a lot of tact, but I had a lot of instinct. And so because of that, we sat in front of the judge, and the judge brought up this very scenario that we're talking about. The judge, I'm there on a restraining order, which means it's a conflict. It has nothing to do with child support. And if anybody remember, like I remember in Miami-Dade County, particularly in North Dade, they had the discretion to actually mesh the two together. And so you can be there on a domestic violence type restraining order, but what they would do is impede, or not even so much impede, but initiate a child support order during the domestic violence order, right? And so when the judge asked, he was like, "Well, if you want to see your child, now keep in mind, I'm here for domestic violence. It's a conflict between me and her husband."
I follow you. Yes.
Literally, the judge said, if you want to see your child, how much child support are you willing to pay her?
Ain't that something?
And I said to him, I'm like, "Excuse me, sir." I'm like, "I'm not here for a child support case. I'm here for domestic violence with a husband case. My child, only thing my child have to do with this is the fact that I have a right to see him because he is my child. That's number one. And number two, they broke numerous promises to make sure I see my child, which is where the altercation derived from. The judge, I didn't give him the answer he wanted to hear. He stamped the order and said I couldn't see my son for a year. I flipped all the papers and stuff and flipped his desk over. This is the judge. And so I guess I was so mad. I done told the story a few times on there. I was so mad. And I'm going to be honest with you. You know how people say, "I die for my son"?
Right.
Okay, I was there. Now, you can't be selective saying, "Oh, I die for my child." But to see that, and the system saw that, I would die for my son. And then some kind of divine wisdom came. And I looked over his head, and Johnny can attest to this. And I saw these words that was over his head on a plaque. It say, "We who labor here seek only the truth," or something to that effect. And I said, so I read it to him. I was like, "Man, you got that shit." And this time I'm gone. I'm like, "You got that shit over your head that says, 'We who labor here seek only the truth,' and y'all letting this shit happen to me." And I was just that mad. That judge looked at me, that white, old, gray-eyed, green-eyed, whatever the hell he was at that time, looked at me and told his fellas, like, "Let him go." And I went home when I should have been in full contempt, because I'm going to be honest with you, I was there. And I'm like, I wouldn't advise nobody to go there, because nobody really, and this is the importance of the Fatherhood Think Tank, nobody taught me how to be there. And so I'm there with all of my instinct and none of my intelligence. You understand? Ready to die for something that with time gave me taught me 5 or 6 different ways on how to live for it. And time and love actually brought us all back together, because what I did after I got the order, I couldn't see him for a year. What I did was kept doing what I always do. And so I kept showing up at the grandma's house, because you got to find your allies. And you got to find your allies within the village of which you exist.
Yes.
And so I remember the people that respected me and her family. And guess what I did? I took care of my child through there. and they made sure and funneled that to my son. To my son, and then guess what? In turn, it came back around to me because on Christmas, his stepdad and his mom, she didn't get out of the car, but he did, and he stepped to me like a man and said, "Man, I told her we couldn't do this to you because I see the way you take care of your son, and we can't keep your son away from you if you take it away. Take it away from." So I'm trying to show you how sometimes organically, because not systemically, but organically, if we give ourselves that chance to truly love each other like we're supposed to and like we was created to do, guess what? Circumstances already conquered just by the compassion we have for each other. So I was just giving that testimony.
Oh no! Okay. Because I think you made. I'm so glad you shared, and thank you so much for sharing it. I had not heard that story before, and that story sounds a lot like my story, and I think your story sounds a lot with a lot of people who are going to listen to this in the archives. Your story is going to resonate because that happens all the time. I've had restraining orders and stuff like that with no evidence, and then with one case, I remember a girl, she brought up some picture. She had a fight with another girlfriend and said, "Oh, this is a picture I held on to. And I had nothing to be." We know the shenanigans and chicane, but I think what happens though is through ignoring race, for example, it protects the system, not children. And I think when people say, let's focus on corruption, let's focus on capitalism, let's focus on things and not race. What often happens is I think patterns are dismissed, and a lot of times it becomes anecdotal to, let's say, like my story. If I share the story and you share the story, and this is what I went through, you should have never been in a situation where some other man is telling you, what it is. No, you're gonna do this, you're gonna do that, you're gonna do that. This is what I'm talking about. See, when you have this understanding, this clarity of, wait a minute, you're in a system that made you feel that way, where I have to compose myself because you had to think with the wisdom. And this is what I was talking about, how Black men have this unique wisdom because of our hardship in this country on how to survive, right? That was a survival mode. But in any other reality, if we was in control, this man would have been maybe taken out of the courtroom, the judge, if it was like a ran by my man and said, "No, you can't disrupt this man in his home and his family, and he's been doing all the right." They don't consider these things because we have allowed over a long period of time, and we have accepted to a certain level, this level of disrespect and this level of corruption that we just say, okay, it's a system, and how do I survive in the context of corruption, as opposed to how do we fight the corruption, and how do we look at and reframe accountability of what we think is impossible and make it possible? Because it does seem insurmountable, because no one is speaking with a certain level of clarity with respect to, wait a minute, you shouldn't have even been in this situation in the first place. Wait, a man's family, you know how they talk about the king of the castle? It's like somebody said it so good on a podcast I was listening to, and the guy was like, that if you have responsibility, but no, authority, it's like you're a slave. And the system kind of understands that, and as long as you just keep paying, it's like you just a cash register, but these are our children, because I'm going to tell you, what it is, and saying, wait a minute, you should be the last person telling me what it is, because see how you treat your woman historically, see how you treat your woman today, see how you treat your family. And I know, now this is a fact, now I know judges that we've done research on and stuff like that, judges that have all kinds of cases, pedophilia cases and all, and they're still judges, and they're sitting on benches and stuff like that. So what I'm saying in terms of just the framework, just the context of what's going on, is like when we don't look at race, what is lost, in that, without understanding that, wait a minute, I'm offering myself up to this system that I already know does not care, right? That will actually be rewarded for taking away more and more of my rights because of who I am and what I am. And from that lens, right, say we have to organize and structure a way beyond the, like I said, the anecdotes, and say there are established patterns, and that we have a legitimate grievance, and this is why we need to become better organized and say we have to have an alternative to this system that has been destroying our families, because that's what you've been designed to do. And I submit too also that this level of racism and corruption is not random. It follows power lines.
Well, you sound like you're saying that we need, because they do offer mediation, right? And when you're talking about mediation on a cultural competency level, and if they offered mediation through a cultural competency level, more like with back to your saying with the elders and stuff like that, and respectable people within your culture who can mediate them circumstances as opposed to have to take it to the court, then yes, that will be a valuable alternative.
Oh, absolutely. But and absolutely holding, because this is part, once again, of a legacy. This is like I said, there are established patterns of behavior that happen. Like your story, when you were telling me the story, I was getting goose pimples. It's my story. And we're miles apart, right? And I bet you, not only the people who are here in this room, people who are in sound view of this conversation, the same thing is happening. We're not crazy. But what's crazy is our response, that we're not saying that, wait a minute, this is rooted in not these racist, systemic racism, these practices, and this is why your system is not legitimate, and this is why we need to come up with another system that is more caring, that is actually looking at the history contextually and saying that there has to be some kind of equalization that happens on the other side of this that leaves our family and men less broken. You know, you look at the homelessness situation, and that happens because women, they set up with these other dudes and they kick men who brought the house. I know men right now who are living in their cars.
But question, okay, we talk about power and control. We talk about economics. What happens if this group, African Americans, get that power? Think about it. What would happen in the world if we were to be, let's say, like some of the Indian tribes where we have our own judges or our own courts? You think they're going to allow that? You think they're going to give you that power to make that decision, but with your own children, with your own lives? That's a whole workforce you're looking at. Who's gonna support that? When right now many of us are in a situation where there's poverty, there is crime, and poverty is a crime itself. Think about what the enormous change that would make to the world itself today.
Well, you know, difficulty is not an excuse that history accepts. I agree with you. I really wholeheartedly agree with you that the challenges that we're facing almost seem insurmountable or seem like ridiculous to fight. But I think it takes audacity. You look out throughout history, even how this country was founded because of a tea beverage, a breakfast beverage, tea, was being taxed, and a handful of people, not even the majority of the people who considered themselves American, fought the Revolutionary War. By the way, a black man was the first to die, named Crispus Attucks, for that. But yeah, absolutely, I agree with you if you're suggesting that it takes a certain level of audacity, and that's what I think that we need to have. I think a lot of black men need to bone up. Like, we got so much backbone and vitriol towards each other, but it seems like that backbone seems to shrivel up when it talks about fighting a system that clearly oppresses you. Right, and it becomes well, what do we do? We've always had the intellectual. Matter of fact, the English, the language, and the science, and all of that's all us. I mean, and I don't want to go through a history lesson, but there's billions of books on all the inventions, including the computer and the technology that we're using to even broadcast and talk to today. Falls on us. So what I'm saying is that we definitely have the intellectual capacity to come up with something more loving and say that we have been disempowered and disenfranchised. And this is by design, that the people who are running things are actually running it into the ground. I mean, for us to retain, I think, our sanity with regard to looking at the system the way that it is, and radically, changing it and saying that it's either I'm going to cooperate with this system or I'm going to resist the system. It's two roads. You can take
Man, I really hear your passion. I understand it, and I'm not trying to contrast what you're saying. However, I mentally, for me, I live in Realville. And right now, the deconstruction of the system to further propagate our disadvantage, we're not there yet. In the meantime, I am going to understand the framework of which I have to work with so that I cannot be taken advantage of with that system. I'm going to understand it. I'm going to work in that framework. And I guess to kind of take it back to the original topic of discussion of dealing with the 12-year-old, I mean, if the woman is using the system to force me to pay child support, and then I find out that the child that I'm being forced to pay child support to within that system is not my child, I'm going to figure out how to use that system to enact some sort of justice, if you will, or accountability. I got to use that system because right now, man, I would love to be in a construct where we would be able to judge ourselves based on our culture, our heritage, but that's right now it doesn't exist. So in the meantime, I would use that system. Brother Gaspard, I don't know if you can hear me. Your screen's not on. Could I sue the dude who impregnated her and get the resources back that the system made me pay?
If she was your wife, I'm 100% see if Florida law allows it. You could sue the spouse, the partner, the party who impacted and infringed upon the contract of your marriage in their behavior. I'm not sure if Florida, but there are many states that allow.
I would say for Brother Gascar, that's probably unlikely. That's going to happen.
But hold on. What you said that do?
All I'm talking about is just using the system to create some sort of justice.
I think that we have a very prevalent case that recently happened. Is it in North Carolina where the person ended up sleeping, breaking up the marriage with the people, and then the wife came back and sued her and her husband for destroying the marriage, and this is social media, the big social media case. I mean, it was reporting on it that the two couples. The one lady was a very large social media person. She ended up taking the lady's husband, having an affair with him, and then they end up being together. And then the wife was able to come back and sue them for like what had happened to their marriage and the things they did. Like they did social media places, and so exactly what you said, Tenny. There is precedence occurring every day that you could probably find a way if the state allowed it. I mean, it really goes into being allowed, but we're seeing precedents every day for what can be sued and how suing is. We listen right now in Philadelphia, we suing the government because they took down our slave presentation that was on the national park.
Yeah.
Okay, they just came and took it down. Hey, people, everybody, listen, Lightborn, the same one that we went and seen when we was here, the houses, the George Washington house, they took all that down.
Yes.
The city is now suing them. So it's so many things as we saying right now, litigation wise, are starting to become like, look, people's feelings and emotions. Like, I feel devastated at this point. You know, Lightborn said something to me the other day, and I'm devastated for it, and it's destroying my whole life. So I'm about to sue him for something. Johnny, could you come up with something for me?
Alienation of affection, it's called.
Yeah, exactly. So now I'm going to get $2 million I need $2 million because I'm hurting.
You could, like I tell people, you can sue anybody for anything. It doesn't mean you're going to win.
Right.
So, and what Teddy brought up, however, the state of Florida doesn't allow that lawsuit specifically any longer. It used to be, it's the phrase across the United States and various states allow it. It's called alienation of affection, where a party impacted your marriage, which caused your spouse to no longer treat you the way they used to. So that's called alienation of affection. So the law, as Brother Tylon said, which was created.
I'm going to look that up.
Right back to you, Tylon. It allows that to happen. The state of Florida no longer, but they do allow you to sue for intentional infliction of emotional distress. Okay, so even though you can no longer sue for alienation of affection per se, you can sue for intentional infliction of emotional distress if someone that you're aware of has decided to participate in a entanglement with your spouse. But it would only work with your spouse. It doesn't work unless if you're just involved or sharing a child or co-parenting with an individual. Only with your spouse.
And keep in mind, how do you prove that? Because you can file it, but how do you prove it?
How do you prove what you said?
A suit is a suit.
Emotional distress through alienation of attention. That
Well,
emotional
you prove it by one, your assumption, and for lack of a better term, I won't say it's a logical assumption that a jury will be allowed to take as fact, which is because you are in a extramarital affair with my spouse, you are the reason why I am feeling the way my spouse alienated me. Now, your spouse could potentially come and testify for that person and claim and say, nah, I already didn't like her behind. I was already breaking up with her.
Exactly right.
6 months before I decided to do that. That is a possibility. You got me? But again, a jury would have to look at it. Well, is he just doing that because he's mad at the fact that she's suing him? Or was he honestly in that when they look at factors around it, they'll speak to people, you'll possibly bring witnesses that may talk about, oh, my husband and I, we went to brunch every Sunday. He's up here lying and saying that the woman didn't love me, but we just went to brunch and had dinner. We shared Valentine's. He gonna say, I was just trying to be nice because, I was hoping that she wouldn't want to go forward with the lawsuit. Again, all those things play a role in ultimately whether or not a jury would believe that this person actually participated in that behavior. So again, you can sue anybody for anything. Doesn't necessarily mean you're going to win. And you just go through the process. But the laws in Florida no longer allow for alienation of affection. But in other states, because Ron is right, that was a big case. I think it was someone in a senator. I think it was someone in some political position who's the senator is the person who was having an affair with this lady's wife. So she's suing the senator for alienation of affection. I'm not sure what state it is, but that is currently happening at this moment. So you can't do that, Brother Tim.
Hey, brothers, I gotta go. Thank you for allowing me to, speak and give my 2 cents in everything. But don't forget tomorrow, Ron and I, we have a program on the GoPro Radio Network. It's called the Colored Only Cafe. You guys are invited, man. I would love to continue the conversation, maybe, in another form or format, and we could talk a little bit about how we can make a lot of things real for people, especially not really for us. I have to think about our kids, so that they don't have to one day deal with the kind of frustrations that we deal with today. And I definitely appreciate, all of you for tolerating me. And I will, see you guys on the other side. I have another show a couple other shows to do. And Ron and all of you brothers, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart. I love you all. I really do. I mean that. And I wish just the best of outcomes for all of our situations. And you guys can always come on the GoPro Radio Network and speak truth to power. All right.
Hey, thank you for lending your radio voice to us. I appreciate that.
All right, y'all. Appreciate you, fam.
I appreciate you, brothers. Peace.
Take care.
All right.
So I think that as always, right? We have these topics, and they can go. Listen, you
Mhm.
think it's gonna go one way, it can go a whole another way, just based on who in the room, right? And what the mindset and what the thought pattern is, and how it goes. And I think that I I I know I'm feeling that people are getting something from this, right?
Mhm.
And they're getting some insight of things to think about. I mean, when I say it, now they say, "Oh, this is the plan for what I'm." No, something to really, because a think tank is we're not a program, right? We're not a, a, a workout plan. We're a think tank, so we're working with your brain. We're working with you to start to think about things in different ways. And I think one of the things is I think as I begin to deduct what we get from this tonight is that if you are in these situations, you have to begin to think about how you got in this situation and what you're going to actually do about it, and not look at and in many cases, look at all the reasons of why this may have happened, but what are you going to do to manage it now that it has? I think that a lot of times we spend a lot of time talking about the spilled milk, and the milk is already spilled. I mean, we now got to clean it up. Did the glass break? We need to find out, get some glass. Do we need more milk for whatever we're going to do, and how we're going to get that more milk? These are the kind of things you got to think, and not get caught up into like, oh, look what was done to me. Look what happened to me. Look how it happened. Because I agree with you, Tenny. The system is going to be there. We got to find a way like a good video game player to win the game through the system, because it ain't gonna change. It's not tomorrow we're gonna wake up and say, "Oh, we want to do everything your way. We want to do things the way that you like it, and it's gonna work out for you." That's I was raised that way. It ain't nothing. When people say, "Oh, why you don't get upset about this happening?" That happened because I was raised with no. Can I have no? Would you like no? McDonald's would be, don't worry, you're gonna get a hamburger when you get home type. That's how I was raised. All the other foolishness, it's not that important. Oh, I want to get some Jordans. No, here you go, some Deodoras.
I don't 100% agree with you that nothing is going to change.
I'm just saying that. Let me say, I'm not saying nothing to change. Is it the reality is if it's not changing at the moment,
you got to figure a way through.
You got to figure out another way to work around it. Absolutely.
I understand.
Listen, I can tell you, I made my Deodoras the flyest shoes that they ever was. So everybody on their little Jordan, whatever. They didn't have Jordans back then.
I like Deodoras.
The shoes was Felines.
Yeah, Felines.
I wasn't getting those Felines. I got the Deodoras, and because I got the Deodoras, it was all good. The only part that was great is because I had an uncle who had some Bally's tennis shoes.
But that's all your league. That was for the grown folk. Bally's
But it saved me. It saved me because I could come in there and say I got the fresh Bally's on, and they wasn't fresh because they was hand down. But I had them on, baby. They was Bally's. I had some Bally's. I got my Bally's on, slick wrist, fresh.
Oh man. I love the fact, I love Tylon's enthusiasm for his point of view. It could be overwhelming to a lot of people when you allow race to be the main focus of everything you discuss.
Right.
And it could take away from your goal and drive, in my personal opinion, about some things. But I definitely agree with him, and I understand and appreciate his ability to share what he does share. I see here Pro Mobility Services put emancipate yourself from mental slavery. I love that in the studio chat, Rod. That is definitely true. And if you can definitely free yourself of that, you're able to do a lot of things. But as Tenny clearly shared, what do I do about what she did to me today? How do I deal with that? And that was our major focus on that today. And I think ultimately, Ron, we've learned that one, you could potentially sue her for, like I said, intentional infliction of emotional distress. That's something you can sue her for. because she's the one that committed it, not necessarily the person she may have been intimate with, but you can sue her for that. Like I said, fraud, probably deception. Those are things you could potentially sue her for in a civil court, but the family law system at this moment doesn't allow for you to be able to recoup and I think Talal might have been right. Are we focused on the pain that she caused us through the deception, or the money she cost us through the years of investment?
Mm-hmm.
That might be what.
Only if she forced me to.
Only she forced what? What do you mean forced?
If she held me into account for paying child support.
Oh, okay.
Let's say I'm volunteering child support, but it ain't enough. It ain't the number that she wants. So she drags me to court. She makes me pay, and then I find out that the child is not mine. Okay, yeah, I can separate my attention and love for the child, but at the same time, my work means something to me. When I get paid for my time, and I have to take that time and translate it into finances and support you for a fraud that you are perpetrating, that time, that time, in my opinion, needs to be
compensated.
Yeah, compensated for. That's all I'm saying.
Because she went to court to enforce the fraud.
Yes.
Versus if you just voluntarily was supporting a child on your own.
Correct.
I understand what you're saying.
But she's gonna have, and I think Johnny, you can attest to this. She still would have what they call it, willful ignorance on her side, because you didn't know, both of you didn't know until the DNA test actually proved it.
Right.
Hold on, Lightboy trying to throw it.
Probably knew.
Listen, don't let Lightboy throw us off on the thing, because guess what? She would know, just like if we went out and had a baby, that lady would know that we had that baby with her. She knows if she had a baby with somebody else the same way.
But you have to prove that. You have to prove that in the court of law. That's hearsay.
What do you say in hearsay?
What? I didn't even realize probability was Rohan.
Hey Ron, you gotta wrap this up, man. I gotta go. 9 o'clock.
Well, listen, let me just do a quick. I can say we had a really good, entertaining conversation, especially when we have a guest, but like a guest father come on, like Tyler, who hasn't been here, and he jumps on the topic with, and I say out to other fathers who listening and watching, you can come on to the same platform and do the same thing. We're gonna let you say what you feel, because we talk here every week, right? Mm-hmm. We're gonna let you hear, and we're gonna let you get the floor to really say, and then we're gonna talk around that topic, because that's what a think tank is for. It's not a thing where we say, well, our point of view and how we see it and what you saying, sit back, you're a guest here. You're not a guest, you're a member of the think tank at that time, and you probably got, because you're not here all the time, you're gonna probably get the foremost seat, and people are gonna give you the space to say what you need to say, and we try to support it as much as possible. With that being said, let me talk a little bit about our sponsors of the Fatherhood Think Tank. Let's start with our man right here, place to be, Jag, attorney at law, Miami-Dade, Broward, West Palm Beach. You can look for Jag, attorney at law. That's Johnny A. Gaspar, Esquire. You can catch him at his email at Gaspar at jag1law.com. I'll hit that phone number, 305-827-8087. Want to see the type of law he provides, you can go to his website, www.jag1law.com. He serves in Miami-Dade, West Palm Beach, and Broward County. Another big sponsor we have is Fort Lauderdale Q's. The members of Omega Psi Phi Fort Lauderdale Zeta Chi chapter, a big sponsor of the Fatherhood Think Tank. We also have the Nigerian Q's, Lagos, Nigeria, supporting the Fatherhood Think Tank. Let me get everybody in on a quick tank. We also have Omega Lambda, the Philadelphia Qs, established in 1980 in Philadelphia. So as you can see, the Fatherhood Think Tank gets sponsors from all over the country: South Florida, Africa, and Philadelphia. And if you are a father and looking and need some assistance, looking for a phone call, you can hit up the Fatherhood call hotline for dads, 1-877-4-DADS-411, offered by the National Responsible Fatherhood Clearinghouse and Fathers Incorporated. So if you need some support, you can definitely hit that number, look and see how that goes for yourself. With that being said, I want to thank the fathers again for a very entertaining and joyful night. We had a break, came back one night, we had some mercy, but listen, I really was feeling some way last Tuesday. I was stuck in an event, and I was like, I really need my think tank talk, brother. I need it. I need to have these talks. I need to get with the brothers and be able to have that conversation to keep the balance that I like to have in my own life. And if you want to have that same balance, you can join us right here, Fatherhood Think Tank, every Tuesday night, 7 o'clock on Facebook, YouTube. Or come on into the StreamYard and sit in the audience, or even come onto the platform. You're welcome to do so. With that being said, Father, repeat after me. I am a man of honor.
I am a man of honor.
I am a man of courage.
I am a man of courage.
I am a man of respect.
I am a man of respect.
Fathers, I say that I am.
I am.
I say that you are.
You are.
I say that we are.
We are.
Championship. With that being said, you see, we lift our arms up, we hold our kids on the arm and the world on our back, and keep the world moving. I want to thank you. Like, share, subscribe, join us. Father Think Tank. We will see you back here next week, same time, same back channel, and we will be doing the most with the most. It's the Fatherhood Think Tank.
You got music? Well, you got something.